Okay, so this is the plasma fire that made my boss start out the Monday morning safety meeting with a fire reminder to check out your fire extinguishers and make sure they're all still in working order and that the gauge is in green, because it burned on Sunday 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, because today is Sunday. The odd thing is that there's these freshly carved bulldozer roads that the fire used as a fire break. I don't know if they made these as the fire was moving and then stopped the fire here and here. We'll investigate that a little more later, because this whole brand new road goes for a few miles that way. So it's a little odd that they made a brand new road up in here with a bulldozer, and you can see all the fresh wood on the sides showing you this road was carved in the last couple weeks. And that the fire chose to use these freshly carved roads as a fire break. So what we're going to see all throughout this is the Lichtenberg burning pattern. There's ground scorch all over here and all over here, but you can see this little strip right here of unburned leaves. And even where it's scorched, ground scorched directly beneath, there's unburned leaves. So the whole place, right here on this one, you can see that it's burned right here, unburned here. The whole place only burned just above ground level, anywhere from 6 inches to 18 inches above ground level. But there's unburned leaves 12 inches above the ground there, directly above the ground right here. See these unburned leaves right here? So there were no flames reaching up. It was all ground scorch. I'm going to show you a couple other phenomenon of the trees bending and how it burns out a grove of trees in the middle and leaves trees standing around the edge, the same way it does the tufts of grass. But as we go through, notice all the unburned leaves on everything, so I don't got to keep repeating it, and how close they are just above the scorched blackened ground. And pay attention to the Lichtenberg burning technique, the Lichtenberg burning pattern, how it's scorched over here and scorched over there, unburned here. You'll see these repeating patterns all through here. So I came through here Friday and made a video, but it was too hurried. Right here you can see where I plucked off this piece of the rock, showing you that it vibrates the rocks loose. These were attached to here. And I showed, but I deleted that video, so we're just making a new video. I also show, and you'll notice this throughout the whole video, everything here is burned to a fine point. It burns all of the tips of these to a fine point. So when you're going through the aftermath of one of these fires, watch out, because you will trip and impale yourself on the spikes that are all over. That's how fine of a point that it hones it to. That's compared to my fingertip, as you can see. If we could get any focus. But anyway, so everything around here is all burned to a fine point that will poke you and impale you. You will get tripped with one and poked with the other. Probably going to show you quite a few other things that are just standard burning pattern to show you how I know that this is plasma fire. But so here's some more of the Lichtenberg burning pattern. This strip of unburned ground with scorched over here and scorched over here. So I was gonna bet my boss $1,000 that before I even go look, I can tell you it's plasma fire. I'm gonna show you a bunch of these sticks that are burned on the ends. Just burned on the end here. And on the other end, here. So if it's a clean cut end, it'll create that circular burn pattern right on the end. But if it's a jagged end, it'll still create a burn coming out just the end. All the sticks on the ground are like this, every one of them burned on the end. This one's gonna make me a liar. Let's check this little one. Burned on the end, burned on the other end. You can see right here where this, right here, like where it came out. electricity only burns at the entry point and exit point. So maybe it's getting into the middle and going out the ends, or there's a flow through it. It enters in one end and goes out the other. Just like lightning, it only burns where it enters and where it exits. That's why every stick on the ground will be burned on both ends. That's the one that made me a liar. Anyway, I'll show you a bunch more like that. Here's another one. Unburnt in the middle. Burnt on both ends. These are just sticks that were laying on the ground while the fire happened, I believe. And then I can show you the sticks that broke away, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let me grab my coffee. As I walk, I'm going to show you 3 of these strips. This strip of unburned going in that way. There's another one right here. And typically it's the high spots that remain unburned, but you can see a strip of unburned going in there. Burned on both sides. And then the third one that I think I already mentioned, right here. You see this strip of unburned going up and curving in that way? I'll be pointing out more of that. You can even see the green shoots that are still on the ground here, compared to the scorched ground next to it. Here's another Lichtenberg unburnt strip between 2 strips of scorched earth. Fire, don't do that. This stick is a good proof of plasma fire. Normally they have the unburnt spot in the middle, and I just show you that they're burnt on the ends. But I'll also be pointing out some that were burnt on the underside. Like this one's more burnt on the underside that was facing the ground. Likewise here, this part was facing the ground. The radiation comes up through the ground and burns the underside of many of these sticks. Let's go check out this one. These ones look like they popped off the tree. They did, so those ones don't count. The ones that were already laying on the ground produce the pattern I've just described. The ones that you see that are unburnt, laying on top of scorched earth, those are the ones that detached from these, like a fuse. When too much energy is going through it, it splits at the weakest point, at the thinnest point of the fuse. So the branches break off right here. Yeah. So it was attached like this until it was absorbing too much energy, and then it broke off and leaves the end of the branch burned and the rest unburned. And then it sizzles this to a fine point. It's starting to rain a little bit. Here's another good piece that just proves plasma fire. But anyway, I want to get to the good stuff, where it shows the bending technology. Just like in, whoa, this whole place is just covered with all these little spikes. See how it's bent, this wood? Again, unburned leaves. And I'm going to show 2 phenomena. One, where it burns it out in the middle. There was wood right here. There was one sticking out right there, one here. There was a big one sticking off right there. Burns it to ash in the middle and leaves limbs around the outer edge. Just like it does a tuft of grass, it'll burn ash in the middle and leave a few strands of grass unburned around the outer edge of the tuft of grass. This is the same pattern in the trees. Also with the bending, this wood doesn't break, it bends. But before it was hit with the fire, it was growing straight up just like the rest. So I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of this. Oh, and they bend outward from the center. Generally, they don't all bend one direction. They bend outward from the center of the tuft of tree. That's just one of many examples I'll show you. Notice the Lichtenberg burning pattern all over the ground as we go in here. Unburned there, unburned there, unburned here. And so this spotty burning is the Lichtenberg burning pattern that happens when you apply electricity to wood. Here there was a branch that was turned to ash, likewise there. I've turned these tree skeletons, and sometimes it doesn't leave white ash, it leaves red dust in the shape of a tree branch pattern, as if it reduced it to the minerals, like the iron left within it. All these little piles of ash that you see, are where wood was laying on the ground. These branches here, these branches laying right here, were attached to the piece of wood that was right here and burned. And they detached right here, just like the fuse effect I was speaking of earlier, and remained unburned. But they were attached to the log that was reduced to ash. Likewise with many of these other little branches, these ones here that are all pointing that way, they were attached to this log. The burnt end here, the branch is out there. The burnt end here, the branch is out there. Likewise with these. So that was a log on the ground with smaller limbs coming off of it that popped off due to the fuse effect and remained unburned beside it, where they remain unburned between two logs that turned to ash. So notice more of the Lichtenberg burning pattern here. Unburn, unburn, unburn within the scorched earth areas. Little strip right here. Just continue noticing those things. I'm going to show you some more of the goodies. It's not the best example, but here's another one where it popped them all off. All these limbs were attached to this tree that burned hottest right here in the center, and even left this limb attached. Many of these will burn to ash in the center and leave a limb attached here, 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 and around the outer edge, just like the tufts of grass. I already mentioned that. Links will be in the description, where I educate these firefighters, and before they roll up on the scene, I'm showing you these tufts of grass that have a few blades of grass left along the outer edge and have ash in the middle. A much more flammable material. How could it turn it to ash in the middle and leave unburned blades of grass around the outer edge of each one of these tufts? I'll show you where a tuft of grass grows to give an example, if I can find one here in a sec. But it also bent that branch. Moving on. So here's one. All of these branches here were connected there, and it still has one standing. All of these ones that are leaning this direction because the electromagnetic bending effect that I'm going to show you more of here in a moment. So let's just walk on past these. You know, these are burnt at this end, unburned there, and they were attached here, where it still has a few attached. Cruise right over here, get another example of the same burn pattern. That's where it's highly burned. This one was attached here. That's the burn part. It's got all the unburned leaves out there. And these branches were all attached. They're pointing that direction, so they were all attached here. Let's go check out another one over here, and we'll see some more of the bending. The bending. I'm gonna get down on one of these and hold the camera real still so you can see how many are bent this direction. They used to grow straight up. It's like it split the bush right here. Bends these ones that way, these ones that way. Often they all bend outward from the center. And here you can see the perfect example of where it's turned to ash right here in the middle, and it still has unburnt limbs all around the outer edge. Yeah! So these didn't sustain enough electricity to break and snap like a fuse, so they bent. This one burned and snapped. These ones are still attached and just bent. These ones seem to have broken for the most part. It looks like these ones are still attached, but my point is they're pointed that way. These are pointed that way. Those often point that way. Looks like one of them did, the one that's pointed out that way. Let's go look at another one. So these clumps of tree burn in the same way that the clumps of grass do. And this is the same technology used in crop circles, where it doesn't break the stalk of wheat or barley, it bends it. Same technology. You can see how these are all laid over that direction from where they grew. See if we can spot another one without hitting the pause button. Let's find us a good clump. This one's a pretty good example of how it turns to ash in the middle. Maybe not. That one's not ash right in the middle. Let me find you another good example. These are all semi-examples of the ash and the remaining limbs around the edge. I want to find the perfect one though. So this is a good example of the Lichtenberg burning pattern, how it's scorched over here. The line goes right here. Scorched on that side, unscorched on this side. And this is how the burn pattern goes all throughout. If you were to look at it all from above, it would be a splotchy pattern that seems random, but then as you look at it closer, there is a pattern to it. And it's the Lichtenberg burning pattern. Regular fire burns things all the way to the ground. Not just to the spikes that it leaves sticking up out of the ground. So here's two more examples of this pattern here and these over here. Let's check out this one first. Big giant stump right here in the middle. Big branch coming out. Big branch. Turned to ash, but unburned all around the edges. Here, here, here. Here, here, here. Just pointing this stuff out because I know it all kind of blends in together in this black and white ashy haze. But how do you get these outer ones remaining unburned while the inner turns to ash? And it's the same exact pattern as the clumps of grass. I'll show you that here in a minute. And I'll include links in the description that show you me showing this repeated pattern. Look at all this charcoal here in the middle. Unburned here, 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 here. That one, that one. It's a pretty good example. Another similar example here. It looks like there was a big branch here, and here, and here. It created all this charcoal, but left unburnt wood here. All right, my bad. I should include you guys in on this, instead of just talking to myself. But it burned it so slightly that only the outer bark layer was singed, and that wood's still good wood. So basically it left these ones attached and turned those ones to ash. Just like here. My screen's getting a bunch of ash on it. Yar. Here's another example. These ones were all burned clear to the ground. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. Clear to the ground. The ones around the outer edge are left 18 inches tall, and this one is still left standing. Okay. Go check out this one. See all the unburned limbs that were attached. The center where it burned the hardest. A real big one on the outer edge here. And a couple on the outer edge there. Everything else. These were big ones. Here we have all sorts of craziness going on, but it looks like this one broke and this one just bent without breaking. We'll look at it from the other side to show you that that big of a limb does not do a 90-degree bend in the real world. Fire melts and bends plastic or metal, not wood. And there's a technique called softening the stone that the ancients referred to about how the pyramids were built and how they get those stones in there, randomly shaped stones with edges that fit so tight you can't fit a piece of paper in between them, because they soften the stone just like they're softening the wood. I don't know who they are, but anyone who learns to harness this technology, could be us, if we allow it to be. Those limbs used to grow straight up. That's more than a 90-degree bend. I can fit my hand around it. Anyway, it's bigger than my thumb. It's a pretty big branch to bend. You try bending that. The down-facing side and the this-facing side burn the most. Here you can see more of the burn-unburn pattern, burned on the sides here, unburned strip right here. Just kind of preaching to the choir now, because you guys have seen this all before. But I thought I'd just run around and show the latest. So you can see how this one burned inside there more than here or there. This fire just happened 2 weeks ago, and it looks like someone's here harvesting some timber. You see all the cut pieces? Those have been cut since the fire. So I'm not the only one that's aware of this shit, you know what I mean? And it's odd that these are along this freshly carved road. Maybe they knew they had to do some renovations. And so they marked their burn area and said we only want it to burn up to about 18 inches tall. Show us how well you can control this. Target practice. This is less than a mile away from the place where I filmed. Oh, now that one looks cool. This is less than a mile away from the place where I filmed a live one at the Fish and Game Department in their burn pit a couple months ago while there was still snow all over the ground. This is what I meant by that's a cool one. The curvature right here. That might be a keeper right there. The burn line will curve along with the grain right there and stuff. So it's a bit odd that someone's been up here doing some harvesting of some timber, apparently since the fire, it would appear. And target practice, whether it be in the burn pit over there at the Fish and Game or right over here, means solar magnetic amplification causative configurator is said to be able to control the timing, duration, intensity, and location of a solar flare. and the control of it to keep it below 18 inches between these two lines. Give me a little hedge of protection over this area. Show me that you can make this area not burn. Testing. Control over it, the timing, location, intensity, and duration. That's the key to being able to direct it more precisely. So maybe that's what's going on here. A little real estate renovation, maybe a... Anyway, you can see the Lichtenberg burning pattern everywhere. I'm gonna move along in the unburnt leaves, all of it. So I'm gonna show you that this spot that burned right here has unburned area all the way around it. And it's only, right here's the edge of it. You can see the back side over there is green. Come around the front side here, green. So show me that you can hit just a little circular area right here without hitting any of the area around it. That way I can rely on your targeting abilities. And show me how many different little circles you can make. Oh, that's probably why. The roots in these larger trees draw the energy, just like this batch of trees right here drew some energy right there. And in between, smaller trees, smaller foliage, smaller roots going down into the ground. Bigger trees, bigger roots growing down into the ground like antenna. The electricity coming from the ground, just like if it comes from the air, it touches the highest standing thing. When it comes from the ground, it touches the lowest, deepest penetrating thing, which would be the clumps of roots of these larger bushes, rather than these smaller bushes in between that burn area and that burn area. You'll see this often. Just where a clump of trees is growing is where it burned. Green in between, green in between, green in between. Oh, another clump of trees, another burn scorch area. Look at all these trees bent. Those bent trees are the phenomenon that I was talking about. Look at how many of them are horizontal right there. Yeah, you can see the whole freaking hillside right here. All these trees come up and bend that way. We'll go look at them a little closer. But you can see that the trees above them still stand straight up, and the trees that didn't get hit by the bendy sauce grow straight up. These things don't grow bent like that. Huh? What do you think? The bendy forest. Electromagnetics did that. Not a strong wind. Maybe a fire-nado. And let's check out this piece. Unburnt in the middle. Burnt on both ends and probably burnt on the bottom side that was facing the ground. Just spotted that as I walked up and put my coffee down to film the bendy forest. That's pretty bendy, man. Give you a little motion just so you can see the bendiness a little better actually when you put a little motion to it. Kind of see the bent ones from the straight ones. And there's a lot of bent ones. All these pointing that way, and it's not because the gravity pointing downhill. That's not what does this. So we got bendy trees that way, and we got semi-bendy trees over this way too. Those weren't like that before the fire. They were all pointed straight up. They didn't have their branches touching the ground over here. Like all of these, they're all just bent. This one snapped, but the ones that didn't snap bent. And you can see that they've got branches touching the ground down here. And they grow, they sprout from up there and bend and go down and touch the ground over here. Very similar to these. The bendy forest, pretty cool, huh? This piece, you can see that the underside is far more burnt than the top side. Just by looking at it as I crossed by, I could tell. That's the side that was facing the ground. Flip it back the way it was. And you can see that the radiation coming up from the ground cooked the underside right there. But it left all these. And these right by it. Right by it. That's literally where I picked that piece up from. So it turns wood to charcoal directly beneath highly flammable leaves and weeds. So a lot of these leaves on this that are still on the trees have this blackened, scorched look to them. Some are blackened. That's not because flame hit them. That's actually the electricity from inside scorching them internally. Because if any flame hit any of these leaves, they'd all go up. Here's some scorched ones. Yeah. So the blackening, that's not flame touching it from the outside. That's the internal energy coming through from the inside. But it does singe them pretty good. And that's almost part of the demonstration of the control, that you can keep it all below 18 inches and from burning and actually taking the whole forest out. Because you see this pattern where there's all these leaves remaining in the burn area, it shows that nothing actually caught fire the way we understand fire. Because if it did, it would have consumed the entire bush. You know, like Jesus, they say, you know, God was seen in a burning bush that didn't consume the bush. These bushes aren't fully consumed. The hollowed out pieces of wood that I take home and lacquer aren't fully consumed. This forest did not catch fire as we understand fire, or it would have consumed everything wherever the fire was. It has splotchy spots of electricity sizzle fry. Nowhere did it actually catch fire and consume everything the way we understand fire to normally do. This is kind of new, scorched moss. Scorched moss on a rock. And it looks like it even turned a little bit right there to ash, and here. Scorched moss. And scorched leaves. These are the blackened ones I was talking about. None of which were touched by a flame. Yep. Just notice the burn-unburn pattern as I'm walking through here. Just a thin strip of unburn right here, scorched on each side. All the leaves that I'm having to bust through with intermittent burn stuff here and there. But it's only about, I don't know, 10% burn. That's why I coined this term called ground scorch. It's mostly ground scorch. I don't know if we already covered this one. I'm going to just start working my way out of here. Ash in the middle, branches standing around the edge, some that are even still attached. Likewise here. And it's always along the outer perimeter of the tuft of trees that you have one that's still standing. And it's always in the center that it's turned to ash. That was a pretty big branch right there. Right there. That turned to all this charcoal. Yeah, this is unburned right next to it. Charcoal directly beneath it. Along the outer perimeter are the branches that remain standing. Seeing the pattern? Yeah, all right. So like now I'm literally just gonna kind of walk and talk and notice the burn unburn pattern as we go. Someone's been cutting a bunch of limbs here. All of these are cut since the fire. With the little yellow tips, someone came and cut all these since the fire. All those. All these, what the hell? It's like some of these are actually broke. What the hell happened here? This is something I haven't seen before, guys. Look at all these. These are all broke. Broke tips. The other ones look cut. How do we have the broke and the cut tips all here in the same area? What the fuck happened here? Here's a good example of the strip of unburn going right up here. Burn on both sides. But this is what's kind of befuddling me. You guys, I'm befuddled. What's with all these little broken tips? Right beside all these cut tips that aren't just cut. That's a pretty big size branch. Those have been cut. You can see the saw marks in it. The line's going that way. Like a sample was taken from here or something. But even the broken ones, I'm not sure what the hell went on here. Little bit weird, as is all of this. I'm gonna actually just pause and wait till I find something cool. And that's how punch drunk I've become. Is that I'm walking through this apocalyptic landscape going, I'm gonna push pause, wait till there's something worth looking at. You can see this stick. There's a remainder of the stick here, here, and here. The rest of it turned to that ash. Some places you can see the stick remaining, and in between parts turned to red dust. Ooh, tipped over my coffee. So all these little strips that you see along here, all these little ash piles, those were all, once upon a time, trees. You can see this one here leads right up to this unburned area right here, right next to a stick turned to ash, along with the unburnt leaves there. It's like fire and ice coexisting side by side. The unburnt leaves next to the ash wood that was turned completely to ash. Oh, there's another one, another version of the stick that turned to ash. You can see the stick here, the ash there. There's a piece of it remaining that's unburned, yet the rest of the stick turned to ash. Like how it is burnt on the ends, but unburnt in the middle. This sizzled its way from the ends clear to there and then stopped. Apparently. Yeah. And the burn unburn pattern everywhere here. Which is convenient for the plasma fire documentarian to be able to walk through and even check out a little bit of nature along the way. So on my way back, I'm going to take a second video of trees. This is the good news. Look at all the burn unburn pattern throughout here. So I'm going to take a small video on my way back of some trees that I filmed 3 years ago that burned, giant trees. Look like 150-year-old trees. Look at all the burn unburn pattern through here. Look at the burning technique. This is more what a forest fire looks like, where it burns it all to the ground, except it left everything still 18 inches high. But just beyond this area, you have that area where it left all the trees standing, but the ground is just as scorched over there as right here. Anyway, there's a good angle on the burn unburn splotchy pattern going through here. I forget what I was bloviating. Here's probably a good example of how it burns it to ash in the center. Here's those tufts of grass. When a tuft of grass grows like this, after one of these plasma fires, it'll be ash in the middle, little strands of grass all around the edge, still standing unburnt, ash in the middle. Then you go to the next tuft and it'll be the same thing, and the next tuft and it'll be the same thing, and the next tuft and it'll be the same thing. I don't see any around here that are demonstrating that pattern, but these trees are what's demonstrating that pattern around here. Ash in the middle, still standing around the edges. Some. There's another bent one. Here's some more bent ones. Let's go check these out. These ones look pretty cool. Oh yeah, we got some bendiness going on here. In fact, you can see on this one, it bent that one out that direction and all these out this direction. This one bent that direction too, even though it's not part of the same tuft. Ash in the middle, unburned branches here around the edges, here around the edges, ash in the middle. Let's go check this one out. Ash in the middle, still standing around the edges, but bent that one direction. They did not grow like that. So you can see there's a big stick right here that grew out, and one here and one here, and those were sizzled to nothing. But you've got the ones around the edge here. Just like the tufts of grass. With all the unburnt leaves still on the... This one's got the burn line going up this side. Yeah. Okay, that's not gonna do it. Neither is that really. Anyway, this tree's got a burn line going up both sides. Right here. It's only burnt on this side, unburnt on that side. It's getting a little tough to see. This one's got the same thing. Here's the unburnt leaves. On the end of the branches that came from here, notice these are all bent this direction. Ash in the middle.